I'm Roland Greene, Director of the Stanford Humanities Center, and I'm pleased to welcome you to our long-awaited introduction of our digital platform. Today, we want to give you a brief overview, just for about 45 minutes or so, of the site, with presentations by Rachel Karras, our digital manager and web editor, and two of the PhD students who work under our auspices as digital public fellows. Before we begin, I'd like to mention that real-time captioning is available. Please click on the closed caption icon at the bottom where it says CC to start or stop viewing the captioning. The up arrow adjacent to the CC icon permits you to show subtitles, view the full transcript, and adjust captions as needed. Here's the backstory to what we're talking about today. About 4 years ago, we took stock of the SHC's online presence, and we decided to invest in a new digital platform that would raise the visibility of humanities research at Stanford, convey the SHC's own information, for example, about fellowships, workshops, and events in an attractive way, and publish intellectual content in an open access format. The new site went live some months ago, and it is still very much a work in progress. As we discover improvements, we dream up ways of streamlining some of the features that we've been testing, make it a little bit prettier. But now, as the new academic year begins, we want to share it in its current state with our community of former fellows and invite your participation. We believe that the arrival of the new platform marks one of the turning points in the 44-year history of the SHC, comparable in potential impact to the dissertation fellowships that appeared in the 1990s and the research workshops at the turn of the century. The new site is overseen by a new role on our staff, a digital manager, who supervises 10 digital public fellows, all graduate students who work with the rest of our community of fellows to bring exciting work in the humanities to light. And just before I turn it over to Rachel, let me just make one more expository note, which is to remind you that to submit a question, you should use the Q&A feature in Zoom, and we will get to it at the end of the presentation. And please note, this event is being recorded. In fact, while we have just a handful of people with us here live, we expect many more fellows to join us for the recording after the fact over the next few weeks and months. And the recording will be made available to all of our former fellows. And now let me introduce Rachel Karras, who has been with us for over a year now and has been managing our digital assets and is responsible for almost most of what you're going to see here. And I can't wait for you to meet her and for Rachel to tell us about the platform. Rachel, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Roland, and thank you all for joining us today. I'm so excited to share with you all more about our digital platform and how it can keep you connected to the SHC. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that I can start showing off this beautiful website, this wonderful platform. So our platform has three main components that I'm going to share with you today. Stanford Humanities Today, our front page, the SHC website, of which the Humanities calendar might be of particular interest to you, and Arcade, our digital salon. So I'll speak a little more in detail about each of these components. As you can see, we're here on Stanford Humanities Today, our front page. This is the landing page at shc.stanford.edu. Here you can find a selection, updated weekly, of humanities-related news, events, and items from Arcade. We love highlighting news items and new projects by former fellows. All you have to do is email us with something you'd like to share, and we will happily add it to the page. And towards the bottom of the page, you can see several events, which are auto-populated from the events calendar portion of the SHC website. Now, as you are probably aware, the SHC website is the home of everything SHC related, and the events calendar has recently become more than just a site for SHC events. We are now a hub for all humanities related events at Stanford on campus. And we welcome submissions to the calendar. As you can see right here on the calendar site, there's a button to submit your event details to be promoted on the calendar. It's a simple Google form, and we are delighted to do that. And finally, I would like to introduce Arcade, which is our digital salon. The tagline for Arcade is "The Humanities in the World," and that's truly our mission. Of the moment, current open access scholarship in the humanities that is engaged in the world at large. Arcade is divided into 3 sections: interventions, colloquies, and publications, of which we have 3: Debour, Occasion, and Republics of Letters, the last of which actually just published a new issue last week, which I heartily encourage you all to explore and read. Today, 2 of our graduate student digital public fellows, Utsavi Singh and Núñez, will discuss interventions and colloquies in detail. So I'm now going to pass the floor to Utsavi, who will speak in detail about interventions. Utsavi?
Thank you, Rachel. Hello, everybody. I am Utsavi. I'm a 6th-year PhD candidate in the Department of Anthropology here at Stanford, and I'm also a public fellow at the Humanities Center. And as a digital public fellow, I am the editor of Interventions, which is the blog section of Arcade. So we like to think of interventions as an experimental space to rehearse new ideas. We invite short form articles, so between 1,500 to 2,000 words, maybe 2,500 articles on perhaps a book that you're writing, and maybe it's coming out next year and you have a lot to say about it. Maybe you can test some ideas out from the book. Arcade and Interventions is a great place to do that. It's a great place to perhaps write a short article on something that you might be thinking of that is also relevant to current events in the world. Our Interventions is where we invite non-traditional pieces that perhaps might not be a great fit for traditional journals. I would like to highlight perhaps a couple of pieces for you to give you a better picture of how we do things, what we look like. I hope you can see all that. So this is Interventions. We have some very exciting recent pieces one by a former fellow whose book was coming out soon. And at the same time, the discussion around affirmative action in the US was also taking place in the country. And so Hyan Lee was kind enough to write a short article for us on her book, on her thoughts on affirmative action, and connected with the current debate. As you can see, we also attach lovely images to the articles. We also have a very exciting new series of interviews on the digital humanities and a new piece by the director of the Humanities Center at WashU, Stephanie Kirk. This is an interview with her about careers beyond the university. Again, so a lovely piece and a different take on traditional articles, different form of conversing with other humanities scholars, the larger community interested in humanities scholarship. So again, Interventions is a great place to interact with current fellows, former fellows, or the community at large that is interested in work that is happening in the humanities currently, and how this is a great space to get your ideas out there and fast. We try to publish everything we get within a few weeks of submission. So again, this is a slightly faster way of publishing than traditional journals. So I invite you all to think about something that you can write for Interventions and get your ideas out. Yes. And now I'd like to invite Anna, who is the editor of Colloquies, to speak.
Thank you. So my name is Anna Núñez, and I'm a PhD candidate in the History Department and a digital public fellow here at the Stanford Humanities Center. So as Rachel said a minute ago, colloquies are multimedia anthologies on a wide range of topics in the humanities. And I'll just go ahead and share my screen so we can look at the colloquies landing page. Okay, so here we are. So getting into the nuts and bolts of a colloquy a bit more, a colloquy consists of one or two curators who conceive of the colloquy. So that is, they develop a topic, they name it, they write an introductory essay, and then they compose a list of material that they would like to include in this digital multimedia anthology. So this material can take the form of articles, book chapters, blog posts, lectures, videos, photos, really just about anything. And so once that's done, arcade editors or digital public fellows such as myself are then responsible for bringing this vision to life on the arcade website. So colloquies operate on a rolling deadline, so we're always open for new submissions, and former fellows make excellent curators as they really have their finger on the pulse of what is current or of the moment at the Stanford Humanities Center. So for example, a current colloquy, Imagining the Oceans, is one that's curated by a former faculty fellow. Another current colloquy is Public Humanities, which is, of course, a very timely topic. And then just to name a few other colloquies, there's one called Postcolonial Spatialities and another new one called Black and Brown Intimacies Across Africa, South Asia, and the Caribbean. And both of these colloquies were born out of Humanities Center research workshops. And so I'll quickly scroll through here. This is the landing page, so you can see them all beautifully displayed here. So if there's a theme that you or other fellows really connected on during your time here, or a theme that you keep coming back to, we'd love to see it turned into a colloquy. And then one final thing I'll mention is that if you were to log in, create an account, log in, you would see on individual items of a colloquy a button that reads Add to your own colloquy. And so this is a feature that allows you to add individual pieces from across all of the colloquies into your own personal colloquy. So a digital feature that allows you to curate a personal colloquy. And with that, I will stop sharing and hand it back over to you, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Anna and Utsavi. As our two digital public fellows have highlighted, and the very title of today's event alluded to, that we said in that tantalizing email, the SHC wants you back. One of the primary goals and benefits of Arcade and of our digital platform in general is the way in which it allows our community of former fellows to stay connected with the Stanford Humanities Center, even when your time in residence here at the center has passed. Whether by publishing your work on interventions or colloquies, promoting your events on our calendar, or even just offering you a space to read and stay abreast of the current goings on at the center, our platform is here to keep the connection between you and the SHC strong. So I now welcome Roland and Utsavi and Anna to turn their cameras back on and join me for answering any questions that you have.
Thank you, Rachel and Utsavi and Anna, for giving us that nice overview. I see we have a couple of questions. Let me start with this one for Rachel, but for all of you, really. If someone out there, former fellow say, is interested in thinking about the idea of proposing a colloquy, how do they go about it?
Absolutely. So the colloquy proposal process includes writing up a short, what is it, Anna? Normally, do we ask for about a few hundred words?
I would say a few hundred words.
A few hundred words about the topic of your colloquy, as well as a sample bibliography of materials that you would like to be included in the colloquy, and send that along to Anna, who will work with you to shape it into the perfect colloquy proposal. And once it's ready, she passes it along to our editorial board, who makes the approval, who performs the approval process. And we're both Anna and I are happy to answer any questions you have while you're working on that colloquy proposal.
How long are colloquies up? How long are they live?
So that's really up to the curators. As you saw when Anna scrolled through the colloquies, we have a distinction on the website between open colloquies and archived colloquies. So open colloquies are colloquies that are still actively being contributed to. And that means that the curators are adding materials to them at, on a rate of at least a few pieces per year. And at any point, the curators can decide, you know what? This colloquy I've added everything to it that I want to add. I don't think I'm going to be adding any more. Let's make it archived, in which case we make that designation on the website. It gets a different little flag in the corner. It says archived. It moves to a slightly different page, and then it continues to stay up there. At any point, you can decide, actually, I'd like to keep it going. We actually had a curator change his mind this summer. First, he decided he wanted to archive it, and then he decided, you know what, no, I actually have more material I'd like to continue contributing to this colloquy. So it remains open, and it stays on the open page, and it can stay there as long as the curators are interested in actively contributing to it.
Great. Anna, you mentioned that colloquies often include previously published work, such as articles and book chapters. How does that work? How is Arcade able to republish? If I were a curator, a potential curator, and I thought, there's a chapter of a book that's came out 6 months ago, or perhaps is coming out 2 months from now, and I might want to include that in my colloquy, and I tell you about that, how do you go about obtaining that material, and how do you present it on the site?
Yeah, so this is really the bulk of the work that Arcade editors, or us digital public fellows, do behind the scenes. So when the curators compile a bibliography, we then take those pieces and we approach publishers and ask for permission to publish this material open access. And we ask for permission for the article or the book chapter itself. And then if there are images in those pieces that would also like to be included, that the curators would also like to have be on the website, then we go and we ask for those permissions as well. And sometimes a publisher is less inclined to offer that material up open access, but most of the time people are really excited to have their material in this open access, widely available platform. And to tie it back quickly to what Rachel said earlier, this is where in the sort of the pitch for the colloquy, that bibliography section is important, because it can give us a sense of sort of where we're going to be going to ask for permissions. So that's how it works on the back end, is editors ask for permissions, they get that open access permission, and then we on the back end input that, reformat it. We reach out to our artistic editors who curate these images, and that's how it gets uploaded onto the site. Yeah.
I want to tag a little bit onto that, which is to say that we do have a number of presses and journals that are very strong longtime partners of Arcade, who are absolutely on board with our open access model. A few that spring to mind right away are Duke University Press and Princeton University Press have both been longtime partners with Arcade. They are always excited to share their materials. And one thing we do that helps foster this relationship is when we republish material, we always link it back to the original content in which it was published. So if it's a journal article, we always link to where the original journal lives online, whether that's on the journal's website, if we have a DOI for the article. And likewise, if it's a book chapter, we always link directly to the publisher's website with a link that literally says, buy this book, because we hope to really foster that two-way relationship with these presses where we're saying, look, you're giving us the right to publish this content open access, and we're getting audiences excited about the material that you have, and hopefully driving them back to look at more of what you have also published.
Anna, this is for Anna and Utsavi. It must be for a digital public fellow, it must be an interesting experience for a PhD student to be, in the case of Utsavi, working with faculty authors, former fellows, current fellows, sometimes people outside of Stanford, as contributors of interventions, and sort of helping them shape their pieces and figure out how best to present ideas in that kind of experimental format. And then Anna to work with presses, sometimes the author of the original piece that's being included. You might consult with them, but certainly the curators and the people that have a vision for how they want a colloquy to go. You know, for a lot of PhD students, you get all the way to the end of your time as a PhD student without ever really talking with a press or talking with an author outside your discipline or outside your department. So could both of you just say a little something about what that means to you as digital public fellows to have that kind of experience?
Yes, definitely. It's definitely a very rewarding experience, and it's great to kind of come out of our own little dissertation shells and see and read about all that is happening in the wider world of the humanities and sometimes other disciplines as well, the social sciences. And it's a great way to get in touch with other scholarship and other scholars and work with them long term. Sometimes these editor-author relationships last a long time, much beyond our time as digital public fellows, and that is always rewarding. And yes, as Roland said, it's also a great way to understand how the academic publishing industry works, interact with publishers, interact with people in between, understand the nuances of everything, and obviously then become better scholars ourselves, become better writers ourselves, and future publishers. It's a great experience, very holistic and rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
I echo everything Utsavi said. For me personally, I was really interested in learning more about publishing as a potential career. So as a digital public fellow, I feel like I've really gained a lot of information in that sphere in working hands-on at the Stanford Humanities Center. And then also from a more scholarly intellectual vein, I'm a PhD candidate in history and my work is medieval history. And so in working as an editor on different colloquies or as lead editor on editing all the pieces that get uploaded, it's meant I've read way more widely than I ever would have. So editing a piece for imagining the oceans or for a new colloquy called Queer Trans-Pacifics, there are pieces there or lectures there or photo galleries there that I never would have interacted with otherwise. So it really is a wide-ranging interdisciplinary space, and it's fun to engage with that all the time, constantly. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. So we've established that that this, in a way, that in part, Arcade is a great space for former fellows to stay connected, and Rachel was eloquent on that point. I'm curious if the three of you could say a little something about current fellows. Now that the academic year is beginning, how do the three of you, and especially the two digital public fellows, how do you envision your role vis-a-vis current fellows, current research workshops? What do fellows and who are with us for a year, this starting right now, and research workshops that might be new research workshops, or they might have already had a couple of years of history behind them at this point. What do they stand to gain from having this new dimension to the center's activities, this kind of, the ability to publish in different modalities and open access and publish quickly? Could you, the three of you, in whatever way you want, say a little something about, from the point of view of a current fellow, what would they stand to gain here?
Absolutely. There's so much to be gained. We've just welcomed the current cohort of fellows last week to the center. And it was such an exciting week to meet all of the new fellows and hear what they're working on. And we have our first research talk coming up in just over an hour. And what I observed happening last week as the fellows were meeting each other was they're already starting to find the places in which their research interests converge or overlap, places that you might not expect them to overlap just by reading their CVs or looking at their publications. And one way that they can really make the most of this platform while they're here this year is to spot those unique spots where their research interests overlap and say, that looks like a really rich place for you and I to develop a colloquy on this shared interest. Likewise, a fellow reading through the website could say, I think the talk that I just gave at a conference, or the paper that I just wrote and published, would be an amazing fit for this colloquy. I'd like to reach out to the curators of this colloquy and see if they'd be interested in adding my piece to it. Likewise, someone could say, I've got something really exciting that I'm in the early stages of working on. It's not a fully fleshed out long form piece yet, or maybe I'm working on my book and I just had to cut this section. It doesn't fit in the book, but I really want it to go somewhere. Reach out to Utsavi and put it on interventions. For the current crop of research workshops, you heard Anna mention we've got several colloquies that are direct or indirect offshoots of research workshops. Colloquies can be amazing places either to archive the events and proceedings of a research workshop, or to continue the conversation in a research workshop. Say you had a guest speaker come to your research workshop, give a talk. A colloquy would be a wonderful place if the speaker is amenable to publish first the text of that talk, and then publish, say, 3 written responses by members of your workshop who want to engage with that talk beyond the actual, in the room when that event happened. Keep it going. So I'll let Anna and Utsavi talk about other ways that they think our current cohorts can make the most of it, but there's so many ways.
Yes, I agree with Rachel that it's a very good space to keep up with work that other fellows are doing, both former and current, and be able to respond to it, write maybe perhaps on a piece that has already been published onto Arcade, and be able to have your own ideas out there. Another thing that I'd like to add is this is also a great way to be part of the progress in open access publishing. Unfortunately, it's still very slow moving. So Arcade and interventions and colloquies are all part of this movement to really encourage open access publishing, make humanities scholarship and scholarship in general more accessible and more comprehensible to wider communities and parts of the world. And this is how you can be part of that movement towards making scholarship more accessible. Yes.
I'll just highlight 2 bits that will be on colloquies or are currently on colloquies. So Rachel mentioned that a colloquy can serve either perhaps a more archival function of, say, a research workshop, for instance, or it can also push that dialogue forward or in new directions. So there's one colloquy that'll be up at some point this academic year, and that's really serving an archival function of gathering together the material of an artist who was visiting on campus. He had a residency for one quarter or the whole year last year. And this colloquy, these curators of this colloquy are using Arcade as a space to make that visit sort of more permanent, archive it, the photos, the talks, and then also push the dialogue forward. So that'll be really exciting when that comes out. And then also one colloquy that came out last year that was more spur of the moment was a colloquy actually curated here by Roland Greene, and it's called Hope, the Future of an Idea. And all of the contributions to that colloquy were written by current fellows. So that's one way. Another way fellows can contribute to colloquies is if a colloquy is coming together the year you're here, you can really contribute to it as it's being put out. So in the moment, yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Anna, because for the benefit of former fellows who are watching, let me just say something about how that came to be. We were, once the site was up and we were starting to experiment with it and imagine the uses to which it could be put, and all the uses that the 3 of them have talked about for research workshops, as a record of events that had taken place at the center in the year before, as a kind of exploration of emerging topics in the humanities. We also thought, well, one of the things that we might want to try is something that actually gets the fellows to communicate with each other in a medium other than the in-person weekly contact that they have here at the center in terms of their weekly research talks or the lunches and the kind of daily and weekly contact that they have, we thought, what if we gave the fellows a chance to write something and respond to each other on a common topic that was not exactly directly connected to anybody's research, but that in fact is sort of potentially adjacent to everybody's research, or at least to their sort of self vision as a scholar and as a human being. So we thought, well, we kicked this around for a while on the staff, and we thought, what if we came up with something like hope? Like, what is hope in your work? Does it matter in your work? Is it a factor? Is it something you examine historically, philosophically, aesthetically, or not? And why not? And what would one say about one's relation to a concept like hope? And last year, we sort of 2/3 of the way through the year, we announced to the fellows, we're going to try to do a colloquy on hope. We call it Hope, the Future of an Idea. And they are welcome to contribute. Nobody has to, but we got a number of extremely interesting contributions, but mostly it got the fellows really talking to each other about something that was, in a sense, common property rather than one person's research or another person's research, something kind of held in common that that they could all think about in a kind of in a kind of speculative way. And so that's one of the functions now that we imagine for colloquies in the future, is that when we can, every year when we convene a group of fellows, we can conceive a colloquy that emerges out of their conversations and that gives them an opportunity to connect intellectually with each other. I mean, those of you former fellows who are here, they have so many opportunities to connect intellectually, but this is one kind of opportunity that we've never had before, the chance to publish something collectively that involves a kind of dialogue and mutual comment and critique. And we thought, well, that gives us a different dimension. In the future, there's no reason that something like that could not carry over from one cohort of fellows to another, because as former fellows realize very well, one of the things that the Humanities Center historically has not done much is connect one cohort of fellows to another. We tend to throw all of our attention on the current fellows the year that they're here, and then we wipe the slate clean and start with a new set of fellows. When I was a fellow myself, in the dark ages many years ago, and I was an external fellow. I was not a Stanford faculty member at that time. And when I went back to my regular place, I sort of pined to have some kind of continuing connection to this community. If something like the whole arcade platform had existed at that time, I would have definitely sent in a blog post as my work was developing, or the book that I was writing at the center came out something like 5 years after I was here. Close to the time that it was coming out, I would have sent in something. I would have avidly read a colloquy of my cohort or the cohort after me. So I think we have all kinds of possibilities here that we haven't realized, and we're just at the beginning of thinking about all of this. So it's very exciting, and it's really wonderful to have the benefit of the judgment and the energy and the wisdom of the three of you in helping to realize this. So it's really great for the center. Rachel, we have a question. Do we collaborate with the Stanford Digital Repository?
We don't at the moment, but that's absolutely something that we are interested in exploring as we move forward, is strengthening our relationships with other open access and digital repositories like that. So that's absolutely something that we're not doing yet, but that we want to do in the future.
Yeah, we're also, maybe I should mention, we're also interested in developing our relationships via our platform with other humanities centers. So Utsavi mentioned that we have a blog post by Stephanie Kirk, the director of the Humanities Center at Washington University in St. Louis. We love to feature the ideas and the perspectives and mention the activities of centers going on, things that are going on around the country and around the world. And so one of the things that if you watch Arcade over the next few months, and you will see more and more participation by partner institutions elsewhere who will, in many cases, find that they can really use this format as a way of connecting their work to the work of that we're doing here and to other centers elsewhere. So it's an ongoing exploration. I would say, I don't know if you agree with this, Rachel. Right now, we're still in a kind of a at the center, the digital platform is still in a slightly introverted mode as we try to figure out all the possible connections that the platform can realize here at the center and with our far-flung community of former fellows. And then we can start to broaden out from there and add more connections and more partnerships and so on. I think we're sort of in an early phase right now.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. I would say that we're at the point of really fully realizing what we can do internally and getting really close to broadening things and starting to face outwards.
Right. Yeah. Any final thoughts by any of you, especially Rachel? Anybody, anything we haven't said that we should talk about before we wind up here in a few minutes?
You know, I just wanted to say really briefly, Anna mentioned the option to, add to my colloquy, which you can do with any material on Arcade as long as you're logged in. And I just want to say, being logged in, having your own account is incredibly easy. At the top right of the page, on every page is a login button. And if you go there and if you don't already have an account, it's extremely easy to register for an account. When you do that, an email comes to me. I check to see who is requesting an account. And as long as I see a name and an email address that looks like someone who should have an account and doesn't look like spam, I'll approve it. And then you have access to log in to create your own colloquy, which can be used in so many ways to edit your own fellow profile on the SHC website. There's a lot that can be done by creating your own account, and it's incredibly easy. So I hope to see a lot of requests come in the next few weeks.
If I were to create my own colloquy, who can see it?
I believe it's only you, and you'll have the URL to share it.
Yeah.
So one thing that's really wonderful about it, as Anna mentioned, is, you can create your own colloquy for all sorts of reasons. You can have it for your own personal reading of, oh, I really want to come back to this piece. But something else that people can do is, hey, this turns into an e-reader for your class. If you come across a lot of materials that you think would be wonderful reading for a class you're teaching, is, hey, you just created a reader that you can share the URL with your students. Nobody had to pay to print anything. Nobody had to spend hours over a scanner. And it's all some really excellent material.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is I would say at this point up to now, a kind of easily overlooked, but very, very promising feature of the colloquies format, that the ability to recurate, because it's already been curated. Colloquies have already been curated by their official curators, but take those materials and as a reader, select from among them and gather them into an ad hoc colloquy that is one's own, that could be shared with friends, with a class, with somewhere else, and the only thing that would keep anybody what allows others elsewhere to join, to read that ad hoc colloquy, is being logged in, having an account of one's own, so that if you had a small class, even a large class, and you got them all to get arcade accounts, you could share a colloquy with them of your own making, and have a kind of private curatorial experience using arcade materials. So yeah, it's the ability to remix, I think, is really important. Okay, I think we're almost out of time. Thank you everybody who joined us today for questions and comments, and just for your attention for these last 45 minutes. Especially thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Utsavi and Anna, for all the work you do and for presenting it so lucidly this morning. And I hope that those of you in the audience will be able to return later this year, depending on where you are, either in person or online, because we have a very intellectually lively fall quarter coming up. First of all, 2 weeks from today, that's October 15th at 4 p.m. Pacific time, we will host a lecture by Lauren Klein of Emory University. This is part of our series that we do in partnership with our partner institute, the Center for Spatial and Textual Analysis, known as CESTA, that is Stanford's Digital Humanities Institute. Klein's talk is entitled The Line Graph and the Slave Ship, Rethinking the Origins of Modern Data Visualization. She'll join us here in person, and as is the case for almost all of the events that we present in person, the talk will also be available on Zoom. And then 2 weeks after that, October 30th, 1 p.m. Pacific, we will be joined by former SHC fellow Dylan Penningroth at UC Berkeley to discuss his latest book, Before the Movement, The Hidden History of Black Civil Rights. And that is an online-only event, and it's part of our Center, Inside the Center series, which features the work of former fellows. If you're all of you former fellows listening to this, I'm talking to you. When you have a book that comes out and you want to have an online event organized around it, in which perhaps we can convene your cohort to come back again and watch you and engage with you in conversation again, you want to promote the book, let us know. We love to do an Inside the Center series at least once a quarter to promote the work of our former fellows. But you know that nearly all of our public programs are hybrid, meaning that they're presented in person and online. Now that you've seen the platform, you know when I tell you that everything is there, go for details to the website, shc.stanford.edu. So from all of us here at the Stanford Humanities Center on a beautiful fall day on campus, wish you were here in person. Hope to see you here in person before long. Hope to see you with us online even sooner. And thanks for being with us today. We look forward to staying in touch throughout the coming year. Thanks, and see you soon.